Hey mamas, welcome back. Today I am going to let you in on a secret that ambitious moms like you and I aren't overwhelmed because we have too much to do. But I am going to reveal the number one secret why high achieving moms feel overwhelmed and what capacity has to do with it. Because I am going to connect the dots for you with what my most chaotic last 2 weeks have taught me about leadership and capacity. So you can bring back the insights from my life and apply that to your own life. Because let's face it, even though you and I are all completely different people and our lives are completely unique in its own way, there are certain universal principles like leadership that applies to all of us across the board. And I'm going to help connect the dots for you in this episode. So let's start by painting a picture of what these last 2 weeks of my life have actually looked like, starting with me having to let go of a team member, which suddenly meant that everything that this person was responsible for landed back on my plate. That meant I had to reschedule a lot of the things that were already on my plate, including meetings, appointments, my coaching sessions with my clients, my own coaching sessions with my coaches, and whatnot. At the same time, I did not reschedule the most important aspects of my life, which I will get to in just a minute. So, during these 2 weeks, besides taking care of everything else that this person was responsible for, I also had to interview replacements. And that, in and of itself, is a whole process altogether. We've interviewed over 15 people right now, and we've still not found the right fit. My daughter has been sick on and off. I had also signed up to volunteer for this big community event that was happening this past weekend. And I'd also signed up to dance during the event. And on top of all of that, I was also hosting a masterclass that I'd originally planned. So the masterclass was happening Friday and the event was Saturday. And my original idea was that I was going to lightly revise this masterclass. And instead, what I ended up doing was completely rebuilding the masterclass because that's me. So this involved 300 slides, no joke. And every slide takes hours and hours and hours of thinking, structuring, rewriting, positioning, because again, this is not just slapping some information on. We'll get into all of those details of different things that were playing a part these last 2 weeks. But what I really want you to take away from what I just shared is that 5 years ago, me, this exact situation would have completely overwhelmed me because that's what happens, right? When you have too many things happening in your life and you have no control over any of this and things are just moving at their own pace, things are falling apart, you have all of these plans and your calendar is already full with things in life, with kids, with business, etc., etc., etc. We get completely overwhelmed and we crash, right? Because there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiousness, there's dysregulation in our nervous system. So 5 years ago, me would have actually, one, rescheduled the webinar because I am the boss and I get to decide when I want to do this. Yes, I've told my email list that I was going to host this webinar, but if I sent out another email telling them like, hey, life has happened, life is lifing, I would like to reschedule this webinar, nobody was going to be upset or mad about that with me. But even if they were upset, if people can't really understand lifing, then what are we even doing here? Anyway, that's another topic for another episode. But yeah, what else would have I done? I would have completely dropped out of volunteering for this event, along with saying no to performing in any of these dances that I took part in, because all of it was just too much to hold at the same time. And what do we typically do when there's so much happening? We feel like we want to shut off. We completely want to shut down and say no to everything, not just one thing, or not say that, okay, let's actually look at this from a logistical perspective. Or even if you did say no, or even if you did say, I will just prioritize and do one thing over the other, what ends up happening? You carry the guilt, you carry FOMO, fear of missing out, you carry you end up beating yourself because it was not something that you wanted to do, because you don't want to let go of anything. You want to do it all, which I understand. Like, hey, me, right? I completely understand. But at the same time, if you're carrying guilt, even if you said no to something over the other, what's that going to do to you? So, no, I didn't do any of that. I didn't cancel anything. I didn't reschedule anything. I didn't drop out of anything. Because as disorienting as it's been these last 2 weeks, I wasn't actually stressed. Or rather, let me rephrase. Even if I was stressed, it was a fleeting moment, right? Like you acknowledge stress is showing up right now. Okay, what are we going to do about this? Am I going to dwell in that, just continue to pile up on that stress, or am I just going to look at the complete situation and evaluate what's happening here and actually keep showing up and take action? While 5 years ago, me would have been completely overwhelmed by this situation that was completely out of control, this version of me, super energized, super present, super aware of everything, and also at the same time, I was super involved with everything, because if I commit to something, I give my 100%. If I can't, then I'm like, okay, you know what? This is not something that I thought I was signing up for, because things start unfolding in its own way. And sometimes you realize that, yeah, I thought it was going to be this way, but as I am watching it unfold, this isn't really what I thought I signed up for, right? And then you say no and, part ways. That's completely different, right? So I show up, I was fully involved, and I did my thing. And here's the thing that I really want you to sit with, because this is the exact thing that I teach women that I work with, is that I am no special. Like I said, 5 years ago, me would have been exactly like most women that I coach, and most women that I encounter on an ongoing basis would be completely shutting down because of this exact situation. Like I said, I am a master pattern recognizer, and if I see one thing in you, I'm able to see what actually is happening behind the scenes even before you are able to name it yourself. Again, I'm not saying that to brag, but simply to state that I have done so much work in this space over the years, which is exactly why I am able to stay as grounded and as present as possible without spiraling. Because what's happened? Most high achieving working moms think that their problem, or rather, let's rephrase this, they've been made to believe, conditioned to believe that their problem is because they have too much on their plate, because nobody else knows any better. So everybody is just believing, blindly believing this false narrative of, we just have too many responsibilities, we just have too many expectations, we have too many roles. I'm a leader at work, I'm a mother at home, I'm a partner, I'm a friend, I'm a daughter, I'm a community member. So they start trying to solve this problem of feeling overwhelmed by doing less, cutting things out, saying no, shrinking their lives, stepping back, all while they truly want to do these things, not for show, not for pretending, not to keep up with social media, not to keep up with their friends or family, but because they genuinely want to partake in all of this, just like I did these last 2 weeks. And that's not your fault, because nobody is ever really given it enough time to really understand why is this actually happening in the first place? What is the real problem here? The real problem isn't the size of your life, but the real problem is the capacity of the container that's holding your life. That is a big distinction, and that changes everything. The moment you understand that, the problem isn't how many things you actually really genuinely want to do. The problem is that you've not created the capacity within you in your life to hold and support all of the things that you genuinely so passionately want to do. That's exactly what this wild 2 week stretch really brought front and center for me, was that the reason I could hold all of this without collapsing had nothing to do with my productivity. Yes, I have all the hacks to stay on top of things and to be as productive as possible, but yet It had nothing to do with productivity, but it had everything to do with my identity, with who I am, with who I be. And that is the biggest distinction that people miss. Welcome to the Inner Golden Hour podcast, where dreams take flight, mind, body, and soul get a serious holistic upgrade, and personal evolution transforms into a shared spiritual adventure. Consider this your dedicated sanctuary for exploration, self-discovery, unfiltered truths, diverse perspectives, and some much-needed heart-to-heart real talk. Hi, I'm your host Kusum. I'm a mindset and manifestation life and business coach. Think of me as that best friend you never knew you needed. The one unafraid to call out your BS, deliver a dose of tough love, and hit you with some truth bombs. This podcast is more than just a series of episodes. It's a transformative experience guiding you to dig into your truths, ditch those old beliefs, and fully embrace the real authentic you. It's an invitation to align your mind, body, heart, and soul, to dream big, to explore what truly lights you up, and to manifest a reality that surpasses your wildest imagination. Envision this space as the magical golden hour when everything radiates with a breathtaking glow, revealing the depths of your inner world. Now, come along and immerse yourself in a perpetual flow of inspiration, insights, and massive transformation across all areas of your life. Let's explore the extraordinary, one enlightening episode at a time. Hey there, welcome to the Inner Golden Hour podcast. For those of you who are new here, I am Kusum. I'm a life and leadership coach for ambitious working moms who want to grow their careers and get promoted without sacrificing their presence at home or what matters most. And the work that I do is not just about mindset, it's about rewiring identity and building internal capacity, because you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And when I say systems, I don't mean just calendars and productivity apps. I mean internal structure, the emotional capacity, the nervous system regulation, the energetic alignment, and the identity expansion that allows you to hold a bigger life. All right, so now let's start dissecting different aspects of what had been happening these last 2 weeks, because I'm pretty sure you can recognize yourself in one or more of these instances, and also introspect for yourself to see where are you fully showing up in your leadership and where do you have space to improve, because we all, including myself, we all have space to improve in more ways than one in all aspects of our lives. Okay, let's jump in. So one of the first things that set off this whole chain reaction is that I had to let go of this team member 2 weeks ago, which is never easy because you have poured so much time, effort, energy into bringing this person up to speed. So they get your brand, they get your voice, they get your mission, they get your vision, and they stand behind it. But when that doesn't happen, it gets really frustrating when the person is not able to meet your standards, is not able to meet the deliverables, is not able to stick to the timelines. And there's only so much patience and there's only so much benefit of the doubt you can extend to them. So when I had to let this person go, suddenly all of the work that this person was doing had to be absorbed by somebody else. And until we find a replacement, that somebody else is going to have to be me. And at the same time, we've also started interviewing replacements, and I've been through about 15 people already now, and we have yet to find the right fit. And when you look at all of this from a big picture perspective, when you really look at how people approach these things, including myself, of what I have done in the past, we look at hiring struggles and think that something is wrong. But over the years, what I've realized about myself during this process, because I have hired and fired a whole bunch of people in the last few years, and what I've realized is that I am extremely laser focused when it comes to the things that I want to get done. I move fast. I am very straightforward. I know exactly what I want. I have a very keen creative eye. I don't compromise on the quality of work that even I produce or somebody else produces, which means finding the right person isn't going to be quick. Which also made me realize this week, as we've been going through interviews, is that finding the right person for your team, it's going to be a lot like dating. usually have to go through a few interesting, yes, interesting experiences before you find the one, right? And it's the same even when it comes to your business as well. When you know who you are and what you expect and what your standards are, the pool naturally gets smaller, and you've got to be okay with that. And this isn't just me. This is something that ambitious women struggle with all the time, whether they are building a business or they're growing in their career. When things take longer than expected, they start questioning themselves. Maybe I am too demanding. Maybe I should lower my expectations. Maybe I should just make this work. But when you do that, you actually don't get anywhere, because clarity is what always narrows the field. And that is never a problem, because that's, in fact, true alignment. When you have that clarity and this pool shrinks, that's a great thing, because you know who you are, you know what you want, and you know the direction that you're headed in. So don't ever feel like you've got to settle, whether it is in your career, whether it is in your business, whether it is in your partnerships. The moment you say that, I just better settle, that's exactly when we've got a problem in our hands, because that means you are not staying true to who you are. That's exactly what I call misalignment. Now, moving on to the next aspect of building this webinar. While I scheduled the date, I thought that I was just going to revise a few slides and revamp my previous masterclass, because everything was perfectly fine. I just needed to make a few tweaks. So that was going to be easy. But once I started working on it, I realized that I needed to revamp and rebuild this whole thing, because the way I was approaching this masterclass was completely changing. Again, clarity comes through action. Once you start taking action, you will get more and more clear on things. You don't get clarity just by sitting there and hoping that, all of the downloads are going to come to you. Yes, that does happen, and that does happen to me as well. But when you start acting on those downloads, you will get further ahead and more clear on exactly the direction that you're headed. And that's exactly what ended up happening for me as well. So, no, the tweaks weren't quick as I'd realized, but it ended up being 300 slides worth of revamping. Now, if you've ever built something like this, you know that this isn't about slapping some information onto slides and calling it a day. Every single slide has its own purpose. There's storytelling, there's structure, there's flow, there's a sequence in which you move from one thing to another. And every slide, I kid you not, takes hours and hours and hours of work. And not to forget, I was actually doing this while everything else was happening. And that's when I had this moment where I thought to myself, if anyone can pull this off without breaking a sweat, then it's me. I'm not saying this in an egoistic way, but as a deep internal realization. Because, like I said, the version of me from 5 years ago would have thrown in the towel, because that version of me could have never handled this level of, what would I say? Complexity. That's the right word. I wouldn't say this level of chaos or this level of things moving at their own pace in all different directions, but this level of complexity. But right now, this version me could just go about it, show up. Yes, of course, I was like always running against time to make sure that I was keeping up with whatever I was doing, because there was a timeline when I was delivering this masterclass. But at the same time, I didn't do sloppy work. I still showed up for every slide exactly the way I did for slide one. Of course, did I have to walk away from looking at the slides and my docs and all of the good stuff, because I needed to reset and come back to it with a fresh set of eyes when I was working on each slide? Absolutely. I would take my breaks and then come back after I reset. But that didn't actually make me want to throw in the towel and walk away. And that, in and of itself, is a huge difference, because Has my life gotten easier from how it was 5 years ago? Absolutely not. If anything, there's more things that I do, and there's more I be now than I was 5 years ago. Back then, I just had one kid, and my business was not as big as it is right now. And we didn't live in sunny California, and then this and that and that and this and this and that and whatever. My life had different kinds of challenges then, but it certainly was not as big. If anything, there's been more things that have been added onto my life, including a second kid. And when you have two kids and of the ages that my kids are, one is going to be 9 next month, and my daughter is 4 plus. There are things that you do on an ongoing basis, and that's just a non-negotiable. So, no, my life hasn't gotten easier. If anything, it's gotten more fuller. But what has changed is that I have just become someone who can hold more. And that again is one of the biggest distinctions that people miss. Now, moving on to the next element. Well, those two different aspects were about my business and what was happening in my business. This next portion is about what's happening in the community, the event that we hosted this last weekend, as well as me signing up for the dance. Because when I signed up to volunteer, I knew that I was going to have to let go of the VA. I can't remember the timeline exactly, but I knew that this was coming. And I also said that I was going to perform in some of these dances. Again, nobody was holding me to it. It was my own choice if I wanted to volunteer, if I wanted to dance or not, etc., etc., etc. Now, the old version of me would have absolutely backed out, especially if there was a big work event coming up. There was no way in hell I was going to say I would volunteer. And I would absolutely have taken my name off the dance because I know myself. I learned this about myself last year. It was news to me. This is something that I realized. It came as a shock to me last year, last summer, that while I love dancing, you play music and I can dance any day, anywhere, anytime, the way my body wants to move. But I have lost the ability over the years to dance or to pick up choreography, which was real interesting. It does take a heck of a lot of practice if I have to dance to a choreographed dance. I think part of that is because when I am so in tune with ecstatic dancing, which is basically you paying attention to the music and the beats and going with the flow and moving as your body wants to move, while there is choreography involved, you have to move your body a certain way. And those two, for me, I've realized don't go hand in hand anymore. So it does take a heck of a lot of time for me to practice even a 1 minute choreographed dance. So that meant I would have absolutely taken my name off dancing during this event and I would have instead focused on my work. But this time, I didn't do either. I stuck to it even when I knew, even when I couldn't make to the dance practices because others who took part in the dance, they had been practicing for 2 to 3 weeks now, while I couldn't make it to these dance practices. One, we have our commitments in place already, especially with kids. And then my daughter was falling sick on and off. That meant when my hubby and my son are out because they have activities in the evening, I had to stay home with my daughter and I couldn't bring her to the dance practice because she wouldn't have been able to stay up there. So there were all of these moving parts. Every day I would think, okay, tomorrow might be different. I will go. On one hand, I'm taking care of my daughter, staying home with her. On the other hand, I'm working through my slides because I was at it all day, every day, pulling all-nighters and whatnot, functioning off of 3 to 4 hours of sleep. So that meant I literally showed up for dance practice 2 days, out of which I think the dances that I was partaking in, we got to dance for about 10 minutes each on 2 days. So in total, I might have spent about an hour or two practicing for these dances because I literally had no time. But instead of taking off my name, yes, initially I had said yes to dancing in all of these songs, or most of these songs rather, but now I stuck to dancing in three of them. Despite not having time to practice, I did it anyway because what I've come to realize over the years, first of all, this wasn't any competition, and I was not going to fuck up anything, even if I didn't know the steps or whatnot. But this wasn't about being perfect at all. It was about me being there, fully alive, fully present, and absolutely having the most amount of fun. So I did it anyway. While past me would have been stuck in perfection, would have been stuck in overwhelm, would have been stuck that I didn't get to do what I wanted to do before I showed up for the performance and would have spiraled. And that is the biggest difference because a lot of ambitious working moms accidentally shrink their lives. They start believing that if their career is demanding, everything else needs to get smaller. But what if the opposite is true? What if the things that make your life vibrant are actually the things that expand your leadership capacity? And let's actually look at this another way. This is not exclusive to ambitious working moms alone. This is also including moms just in general. How many times are you accidentally shrinking your own life and saying no to the things that are so near and dear to your heart because you have not figured out a way to hold all of it together, to expand your leadership capacity so you can still be doing this and this and this and this and this and still be fully present and live a rich, vibrant life. Again, this isn't about doing it all and holding it all, but it's about not sacrificing the things that are the most important to you, not compromising on the things that are so near and dear to you. Again, there is a big difference when you understand these subtle distinctions. And then there was this other aspect of emceeing during this event that I'd signed up for. And there were about 450 plus people during the event. And I ended up emceeing the entire event, even when my voice wouldn't carry through across this huge open field because the speakers that we were using wasn't as powerful. So my voice barely carried. While nobody else seemed to care about that and nobody else seemed to even notice, I know what I bring to the table. I know all the things that I had planned in my head to keep the crowd engaged in various different activities, and I couldn't even implement 5% of that. And yet, instead of being frustrated about the situation of speakers or that people were not even paying attention to what I was saying because they were barely able to hear me, or the fact that I was not able to implement all of these things that I had thought of in my head. I don't necessarily write it down. Ideas keep coming to me, and somehow I keep them here in my head and I implement them, playing off of the energy of the crowd. Even though I was not able to implement all of that, I loved every minute of what was happening. Again, 5 years ago, me would have been so frustrated, would have been so upset, would have been so disappointed. But this version me was not. And the biggest realization I also had, despite all of these things not happening the way I had anticipated, or rather, I had wanted them to have happened, not only did I love every minute of it, I was having fun. And the biggest thing that stands out amidst all of this is that I love leading energy in a room. In this case, it was a big open field, but leading energy. I love doing that. I love bringing people together. And that part of me, Like I've always had this vision of being on bigger and bigger and bigger stages and speaking and making an impact. That's always been a part of my bigger vision and mission. But all of those instances, they all come with near perfect setups, right? Because when you are on a big stage, people are already taking care of the things that need to be taken care of, and things are implemented to the T. And yes, of course, things don't always go as planned, and that's to be expected. But there is a reason people have gathered there. That is a perfect situation that's set up. But even when the situation and the setup is not near perfect, I loved it all. I had so much fun. That goes to say that this is one of the things that I am meant to do. And of course, there were people that were complimenting me and praising me for how I emceed, etc. But if I were to rate myself, I would rate myself a 4 or 5 at best for how I went about this whole thing. Again, not beating myself up about it because I know what I bring to the table, and there's always room to implement all the things that I wanted to, but letting go of that control of this needed to happen this exact way, that feels so damn liberating. I wish more women truly understood the power of that. I wish 5 years ago me understood the power of that. But hey, better late than never. And speaking of leading energy in a room and bringing people together, since the beginning of January, I've also been leading weekly somatic sessions in my community, which ranges from meditation, breathwork, qigong, ecstatic dancing, energy work, and various other practices, which I won't reveal just yet because every week looks different. Every week I give them a different practice. I lead them through a different practice. And I am a lifelong learner, and I know the deep rooted value of each of these practices. So I keep learning new modalities every so often, and I keep mastering them. And that is something that I also bring to my clients all the time. Like every session, different clients get to experience different practices. Besides me coaching, I also walk them, lead them through some kind of somatic practice that actually really helps integrate and embody everything that we are speaking about during the session. But what's been interesting to me is that when I do this work with my clients, there's already that built-in trust. They know me, I know them, they know this work. But doing this with people who barely know me, that's a completely different dynamic. And yet the response has been so amazing that people leave feeling lighter, calmer, more connected. And they message me and let me know that they're so grateful that I'm hosting these sessions and they never want me to stop and they want me to keep going with these sessions. And what really stands out with all of this is, yes, I love doing this work, this deep transformational work with my clients, where we get to go really, 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 really deep. But in these community sessions that I'm hosting, maybe I'm able to bring about just 5% of the full scope of work I do with my clients. And yet, even that small window is creating such meaningful, such powerful shifts, which again is a great reminder of how impactful the work that you do really is, no matter in whatever capacity you're able to put that in front of more people, whether it is 1% of the work that you do, because it's easy for me to say that, hey, this doesn't really fully amount to the deeper transformation I am able to offer you. At the same time, it's like, even if I just offered you that 1%, if that's making a significant difference for you, then I am going to show up and do exactly that. So, as high performing, high achieving women, we have this deep desire that I want to give you everything that I have because I know how deep this work is, because I know how impactful this thing is that I do, but at the same time, letting go of the depth and saying, it's okay. 1% is still better than no percent. Getting to that place, again, 5 years ago would have perhaps dismissed this because it wasn't as deep and as meaningful and as impactful. But Me now is like, that's great too. Something is always better than nothing. Because I've also had to let go of the all or nothing mentality over the years. I have come a long way. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I was always this person who was either all in or nothing. Yes, of course, there's a big difference between playing full out, but I was either all of it or none of it. And that doesn't really work in real life. And yeah, I'm so glad that I've had that realization too. So, amidst all of these different moving aspects, whether it is my life, my own personal life, or in my business, or in my community, what has struck out for me is that my life and my work feed each other. Because when I am fully alive in my life, my creativity expands, my leadership expands, and as a result, my business expands. And the other way is just as true because when my business is expanding, my creativity and my leadership is expanding as well. And that is such a beautiful cycle to experience because we feel like we have to let go parts of us to hold on to other parts of us. But no, it's not true. You get to be all of you. You get to want to have it all and you get to hold it all without having to sacrifice what truly matters to you the most. Because that's the biggest lie ambitious women have been sold. That success requires sacrifice, that if you want a big career, something else has to shrink. But the real shift is learning how to actually expand your capacity so your life gets to be full, not perfect, but full. And when I say full, I don't mean a calendar that is full. Full means you show up for your work, you show up for your family, you show up for your desires, you show up for your community, you show up for your own growth, you show up for what lights your soul on fire. Not flawlessly, but wholeheartedly. A life that is full, where you're joyful, where you're present, and where you're alive, and one aspect of your life is feeding the other, and not just you, but everyone around you gets to experience the benefits of your full life. So, yep, these 2 weeks have been hella chaotic and absolutely messy. They've been imperfect, unexpected, but these 2 weeks have also reminded me the deepest truth about life that momentum doesn't come from perfect preparation. It comes from showing up. And every time you show up, your capacity expands. So let me ask you this. Where in your life are you shrinking because you believe you can't handle more? What would your life actually look like if your capacity expanded instead? And where might imperfect action create momentum for you right now? And that's the biggest difference between success by accident and success by design. One relies on willpower, the other relies on structure, internal structure and external structure, the masculine and the feminine working hand in hand, working together. So if you're listening to this and thinking, my life feels overwhelming right now, I want you to ask a different question. Not how do I do less, but how do I build the capacity to hold more? Because when that happens, you stop surviving your life and you start leading it. On that note, if this episode has gotten you curious about what this masterclass, this 300 slide deck webinar is all about, I am going to leave all of the details in the show notes. Be sure to check it out and sign up for the next masterclass. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with another ambitious working mom who's trying to build a big life without losing herself in the process. Because the truth is, your life doesn't have to get smaller for your success to grow. Your capacity just has to get bigger. Thank you for joining me on another episode of this podcast. I appreciate your time, your presence, your commitment, and your willingness to embark on this journey of self-discovery, transformation, and manifestation.
If anything you heard today resonated with you, sparked new insights, or brought about aha moments, I'd love to hear all about them. So please share your thoughts by tagging me on social media at Passion Purpose Passport and follow me there for more inspiring content and connection. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and show your support by liking, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. The more good we share with the world, the more the universe unfolds its magic for us. It's not just good karma, it's the universal law, aka Manifestation 101. On that note, align your mind, body, heart, and soul with your deepest desires for limitless possibilities. Remember, every step you take, every action you choose ripples through the universe, shaping the reality you wish to experience. Until next time, keep basking in the brilliance of your inner golden hour and keep manifesting miracles.